Hello, this is Mrs. Duncan, and this is the first part of our Chapter 9 videos on the elements of music. So I'm going to also try to track with you through your book, which it starts on page 225, and this is on the first component. All right, it talks about hearing versus listening, and it wants to distinguish between the two. And you know how you can say something and someone physically hears you, but they weren't really listening. You know, you're not listening to me, we say. Well, they kind of distinguish that way too, and for the purposes of the chapter and of music, they define it this way. Hearers do not attempt to perceive accurately either the structure or the details of the form. And so that would probably be the better description for most of us when we're saying, I'm listening to the radio. By these definitions, no, we hear it. We're hearing the music. And we're not really paying attention to the details of the form or the structure. We're just listening for melody and lyrics and overall kind of a perception. Nothing wrong with that. It's just they're distinguishing this way when you experience music, and when they're saying listening, they mean for something a little more complicated and complex. And usually you have to have some training to even know what to listen for. And unfortunately, you won't be an expert by the time this is done. But hopefully you'll be able to know how to listen to other things when you listen to a piece of music. Listeners concentrate their attention upon the form, details, as well as structure. They listen for the content, and that doesn't mean the words, the form that creates the content. So we're actually going to do the first perception key, and on page 226 we're going to do this one together. You can do it yourself. I'm going to do one with you here, but play one of your favorite pieces of music and describe its overall organization or structure. Is there a clear melody? Is there more than one melody? If so, are they similar? Do they contrast? Is the melody repeated? Is it varied or the same? Now we're talking about really listening for something specific. Do different instruments play the melody? If there are lyrics, are they repeated? And so the example I'm going to use are two songs from Phantom of the Opera, which you may or may not be familiar with, and I'm going to play some of that and kind of go through those questions, maybe not all of them. And so to do it, I've got to wait for it to load up a bit. You can certainly do this with a piece of music that you would like. Okay, this is the theme. And you hear this organ, and it's playing this repeated da 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 da. And then the drums come in. It's got a heavy rhythm, but we don't know what there's nothing really to sing along with yet. And then she sings. Very simple melody line, kind of spooky. There's that organ again, along with the drums and some guitar and other instruments. That changed keys, but he's singing same melody line, but it sounds a little different. So the melody's repeated in his part of singing. Now, one thing that makes this a theme song is that you will hear variations of this melody line throughout the whole musical. Now notice they'll change keys again, but they're just going to keep the melody line. Back to her. Then it's him. So even though it goes back and forth between the singers, they sing the same melody line. And here they're singing it together. Because by now he has her under his spell. He has control, so they're singing the same thing. And you have that sort of pulsating orchestration behind. And now you're getting some choir voices and a little electric guitar. There were trumpets that were playing a little bit earlier. A lot of electric guitar with the drums. Now he's not really singing her melody line anymore. She's shifted to something else. Okay, so you get the idea. Oh, there. Now let's see if we can hear something similar in this one. It's a very different feel. Same musical, but it's going to borrow some of that same melody pattern, although it won't have the surging, thumping. Another very simple melody line, but very, very thin, like there's just a little slight piano background. Emphasizes the purity of her voice. All you hear is a little bit of piano in the background. Now it expands into orchestra because it's shifting to a performance. There's those drums, very lush and grand. And it's repeating the melody line too, like you can sing it right or hum it. The Think of Me line. So now the instruments are playing it. Lots of winds and brass. Back to her, very thin. Some strings and now it's changing. New movement in the melody line. It's a different key, so it doesn't have that spooky. It's in a major key, not a minor key. It doesn't have that spooky feel that the theme song had. But very simple, like just movement in it. And then it's building up again. Violins and different instruments. Okay, so that's what we're talking about there, and just kind of listening for things in specific instead of just, watching or hearing it in the background. Okay, so that brings us into the elements of music, and that's a particular word for the terms, but it's the components, the elements, what makes up music. Man, I'm having a little trouble with my voice today. But tone is the word for the sound. When you watch American Idol or something and they talk about someone being a little pitchy or a little flat, they're talking about the tone there. The sound with one definite frequency it's dominated by one frequency. If the frequency, they've got like even numbers for it. It's on the top of page 227, like 392, that note A below middle C vibrates at 220 hertz, middle C vibrates at 262.63 hertz. They're actual frequencies for the sound, and if a singer's under pitched, their hertz number is too low. If they're pitchy, that means they probably are a little bit above it. If they're a little sharp, it has to be right on, and so for it to have it to be middle C or to be an A, it has to be right at the exact frequency on the hertz there to produce the correct tone. And that's really, really important because that's how we distinguish the different sounds. Then we have two that go together, consonance and dissonance, and that has to do with tone. Consonance has to do when there's simultaneous tones, like more than one, that are played at the same time, and that sounds good. You heard a lot of consonant tones on Think of Me, and even on the theme song for Phantom of the Opera. They didn't clash. They had intensity, they might be spooky, they might be bright, but they are pleasing to the ear, and it's one of the things that makes them popular. However, not every music genre uses that. Jazz, for instance, will use a lot of dissonance, and those simultaneous tones are not quite pleasant to the ear. They sound like they clash. However, they do fit for some reason. They're considered, good harmonies. Rhythm we should be familiar with. We should know, right? Because rhythm is the pulse, the beat of the music, and it's that temporal relationship of how often the sound is, emphasized and so forth. Tempo is the speed at which the composition is played, whether it's fast or slow. They have words for that if you've done any kind of music theory. Allegro means fast. Um, Largo or Largo is slow, moderato is moderate, so they have words for that too, but just if you can remember these basic ones. Okay, melody, theme, and motive. Melody is that perceivable line that you sing along with. It's the group of notes played one after another with a perceivable shape or beginning, middle, and end. You know when it starts, if you start in the middle of it, of row, row, row your boat, or the beginning of it, because there's a perceivable beginning, middle, and end. A melodic line is a little more vague. It's repetitive. It could be anywhere, beginning, middle, or end. A theme is a melody that undergoes significant modifications. Now, what I did is I played you a theme, Phantom of the Opera theme, and that melody line is repeated, but it has significant modifications throughout the musical. Motive is the word. Doesn't mean this anywhere else, but it's the briefest recognizably, unit of a theme. So if I were to play this real quick, Beethoven's Symphony Number 5, it's just the little thing there that you can recognize it. It's just a couple notes. Let's see how quick we can get this up. That's it. Da, 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 da. And right away, it's recognizable. Okay. Other elements. Counterpoint, one or more themes that played against each other. That's always very interesting, complex, more for classical music. Harmony. I love good harmony. Sounding of tones that go together. We think of it as singing a part. If you were in kind of choir, we usually have 4 parts. You have soprano, alto, which are for female voices, tenor, and bass. For male voices typically, and when they sing different parts but they all match, that's called harmony. Sometimes the harmony can be not vocally, but it can be in the instruments, and they play a chord like on a guitar, has multiple notes, and they all harmonize and go together. A C chord, a G chord on the guitar, that kind of thing. Dynamics has to do with the loudness or softness. The word piano here is not referring to the instrument, but it's a word for soft. Play something or sing something soft, or forte, do it loud. Crescendo, build up to it. All right, contrast, page 231. You're looking for contrast, give it dynamics, so they're going to, especially in a longer piece, you're going to want some contrast. So it could be different instruments playing different timbres or components of it, little passages. It can be because it speeds up or it slows down or it brightens, just different things. And I am really worried about running out of time here. But Battle Hymn of the Republic, and it's mentioned in page 230, has some good variety like that. It's good contrast, a little bit of dissonance in there. Harmonies, everything goes together really good with the rhythm. There's some contrast. Good contrast. Okay, I've got to move on. Haha. Okay, good. I got through. I was afraid I wasn't going to get finished. So I finished up there on page 230, 231 with the elements of music. The next video will take the next section with the subject matter and some of the theories and structures for that. But it's kind of hard to really talk about music without listening to some of it and having some examples. So I hope that helped. I will probably have the PowerPoint up if you want to access the YouTube videos and listen to them a little bit longer for yourself.